It's 4:53. What do you make of this one? Remember the statue of Edward Colston being pulled down in Bristol at the start of the Black Lives Matter protests last month? It obviously had a domino effect all around the country. Well, that statue was recovered from the bottom of Bristol Harbour and now sits in a secure location. But the plinth that once held it has been bare until this morning, that is. Artist Mark Quinn has created a statue of protester Jen Reid and named it a Surge of Power. He then decided to install it on the plinth in Bristol city centre at 4:30am this morning. No consent or permission had been gained for the installation, though that leads many to believe that this is another example of how we are just one step closer to a woke mob rule. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Should the statue stand? Conservative commentator Emma Webb joins me now. Emma, you're angry about this, aren't you?
Oh, I am very, very angry about this. I think exactly as you said, what this does is it legitimises mob rule. By putting up a statue that essentially celebrates somebody who took part in the mob that tore the statue down, but also the fact that this has been done without the permission of the council. It's been done in secret in the morning, as you say, which leads you to question why, if this is something that is for the people of Bristol, does it have to be done in secret? It's just another case of the vigilante activity, and it's a very symbolic act as well, I think, and they know that this is the case, because the toppling of Colston, of course, set off a chain of events that led to the defacing and vandalisation of all sorts of statues across the country, including war memorials. And by doing this and by legitimising it in this way, it's providing further legitimacy also to the destruction of our heritage, which people feel helpless to protect in the face of this complete onslaught.
And presumably now it's going to be incredibly difficult for the Bristol City Council to say this statue has to go without them being accused of racism.
Exactly, and I imagine that the people that have obviously put a lot of effort into planning this are aware of that fact. They've said in their statements about this that, it's about privilege, it's about Black Lives Matter, and they talk about institutionalized racism and systemic racism. So it's a kind of catch-22 checkmate scenario where if the council tries to remove this, they're of course going to be accused of going against essentially this mob rule that has shown itself to be so powerful. I think what we should be doing really is taking the line like President Macron has done, which is basically saying that you can't change history and this iconoclasm just has to stop. And we also have to stop legitimising it, because of course this started with vigilante activity, the toppling of Colston and the graffitiing and defacing of various things around the world.
Including Churchill, including Queen Victoria. And where does it end?
Exactly, and actually, exactly where does it end? Because we've seen also in the US as well that some statues have been defaced of religious figures, including statues of Mary set on fire.
Well, Emma, they're coming down every day in America now. It's just almost accepted that statues are going to be pulled down, and we are literally erasing our history. It is shocking.
It's a cultural purge, and we know that the ideology behind this is a kind of neo-Marxism. Even the statue itself with the lady with her fist in the air, that's a revolutionary symbol. And what we're seeing is this unquenchable purge of our history and our heritage. And these people don't have the right to do that. And the thing that I think is most worrying is that it's becoming institutionalised. We've seen it with the Mayor of London setting up this commission to look at plaques and memorials and statues in the public space in London. We've seen it also horrifically within the Church of England, that they've started even doing things like boarding up people's headstones because they're no longer thought to be politically correct.
It's just appalling. It's just appalling.
It doesn't stop anywhere.
And here's the thing, Emma, if you really think about this, right, in a generation's time, Colston will be forgotten in Bristol probably, because all references to him will be removed. And actually, how do younger generations learn? It would have been so much more powerful to leave the statue up. I actually don't have any issues with additional plaques being added that increase historical context, that increase a discussion and a debate. But just removing it means that he will be erased from history for many people who simply pick things up by what they see around them.
Yeah, and I think that historical ignorance is part of the problem here. It was what Orwell described as being this sort of eternal present that revolutionaries love. They like to efface the past because it denies people of historical perspective, and it makes revolution easier. You can start from sort of year zero. And it's something that we really, really have to come out strongly against.
Yes, because I've never believed
they are falling every day.
Yeah, and I've never believed that everyone who has a statue is a hero. I've never believed that. I've believed they are very often complex individuals who may have led their countries to war, who may be responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't stand as historic figures. I mean, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, they have complicated pasts because very often great people do.
Exactly. I think what we should be doing is trying to have more history in the public space rather than less. One of the statues that we saw ironically removed in the US was the statue of Frederick Douglass, the famous abolitionist who was the son of a slave owner and a slave. He was a black abolitionist, and some vandals removed his statue. You know, we should be putting up more statues and more context through plaques, but what we can't be doing is putting up plaques, as we've seen recently with some of the suggested wording for some of these plaques to contextualize things. We can't be using the sort of history textbook from the decolonize the curriculum activists, because that's a very biased view. What we want is, you know, a more nuanced, honest historical perspective. And we need people to understand that historical figures are neither completely diabolical nor are they completely saintly. And that
just like all of us, Emma, just like all of us and just like all of our leaders today, Emma Webb, the Conservative commentator, thank you so much for being here. What do you think? Should this new statue of the BLM protester, even though it wasn't officially sanctioned to go up on the plinth, should it stand? 03444991000. Or actually, do you think there has to be a proper process and we can't just encourage this sort of mob mentality when it comes to our statues in our public spaces? 03444991000.